welcome to the stream.
We're an hour early today, intentionally. This was in the schedule, but we're going to be doing starting Wednesdays an hour earlier for a little while, and then we'll eventually switch back to 6. But
Yep.
yeah, so writing Wednesdays, we are continuing what we have started. So we didn't do writing Wednesdays last week. I was sick, Andrew was at work. It just didn't happen. So
As one does.
Yes, yeah. So, we can't be here. We can't be here. Yeah. So I think today we'll start with we'll research a creature, and then continue brainstorming. I think some of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Let me click over to this view. I got this set up between classes today because I had to take down the tripod for a little bit. But, so we've got this, I've got research thing set up. So.
Why don't we do a little recap of what we have so far?
Yeah. So, we have we've done research on the anglerfish, which I can show. We've done, okay, this is not great for me. So we've done the giant squid, which was the first creature that we learned about.
Yep.
Very, very large, mysterious creature. So out of everything I think that we've researched so far, this one has almost the most information out there about it. I think the anglerfish is honestly the one that has the most information.
Because it's not exclusively a deep sea fish.
Yes.
And there's a number of shallow
Kinds of creatures.
shallow water species. We don't have a bunch of Japanese people diving 3,000 feet down
to get their dinner, which we really, for a moment, we were concerned.
Yes.
So we started with the giant squid, which actually in recent years, yeah.
So pressure slows them down.
That reminds
That's
me of
racist.
that is something I gotta tell you about later.
Racism?
No. Although maybe we should have a conversation about racism with no, being short and compact. I found a TikTok sound about being short. So this is our friendship. Streaming and me trying to get him to make TikToks. So that's all it is. That's all we do.
Also me saying ridiculous things, mostly to see what reaction I can get out of her.
Yeah, so, just so much fun. So we learned about the giant squid, which in recent years we've discovered there has been more that science has learned about giant squids. We covered the anglerfish, and who is a very aggressive, very angry boy. Learned a lot about him, and then last week, 2 weeks ago, what? Oh, 2 weeks ago.
They're female anglerfish.
Oh yeah, the girl fishies. These big ones, the aggressive ones, are the girls, and then the boys.
Not a girl.
The boys they just like get sucked into their.
Nature's weird.
Nature is so fucking weird. And then 2 weeks ago, not last week because we were not here last week, we learned about the bloody belly comb jelly, which is
the dick fish.
The dick fish, essentially. And now, and then we've also, as we have learned about these creatures, let me anchor that down. We've kind of established. So, my original scope with these stories was to create a collection of short stories, which we are kind of doing, but then using those short stories as a springboard for a broader series that
10-book fantasy sci-fi epic.
Brandon Sanderson, we are coming for you.
We're not.
No, we're not. No. But collection of short stories in a 3-book epic, maybe?
No, I still like the 10-book epic.
You like the 10-book?
I just don't like the idea of challenging Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, no, because especially...
Mostly because my writing style for this would be a lot more Douglas Adams.
Yes. But the with the brevity, the amount that he
It's
does.
a dick fish.
Yeah, Brandon Sanderson's epics are surprisingly, well, not surprisingly clean if you know his religion, but they are 4 large 1,000+ page fantasy epics, surprisingly clean and but also still very gritty and all the things. He balances it well. But yes, Brandon Sanderson would not be making dick jokes if anyone is wondering. You're just gonna do that every time I look away with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean that in the sense of he has these his storyline series. I'm just gonna do this.
You cannot stop the power of the dickfish.
I don't know if I want to. Okay. He's got these his Stormlight series is supposedly going to be 10 books, so that's where that was coming from. He's working on book 5 right now.
So the Wheel of Time is 10, isn't it?
Wheel of Time is 13.
13.
Mm-hmm. Which he contributed. He finished that series. He wrote the last 3 books. No, am I wrong? Hang on.
Numbers are hard.
Numbers are hard. I cannot count. Also, history is hard.
Now, history is easy. You just make up whatever you want.
Yeah.
And just convince people that's what happened.
Yeah.
Take that primary sources. Also, screw citing things in Chicago style.
My word. Chicago style is trash.
IEEE for life!
I like APA.
Of course you do. That's baby's first citation.
Food?
No
Only for
housekeeping.
only for me, apparently.
That's fine.
You said
I'm not
you're
that
gay.
hungry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm currently reading New Spring, because it's the prologue, and I don't care if you're supposed to read in a different order. Okay. 13. No, 14. We were both wrong. And then there's parts and things. So yeah, there are 14 books. 15 if you include the prequel. In Wheel of Time. And Brandon Sanderson wrote the last 1, 2, 3. I was right on that. That stuff's really good. I'm very hungry. Yeah, but Brandon Sanderson, he's a very productive writer, which is really what I was going for. Not that we're gonna match what he writes, because that's not
The tone and quality I would wind up with is something between Douglas Adams and George Carlin.
Exactly. So the shenanigans on with the shenanigans, Douglas Adams were coming for you. With the productivity, Brandon Sanderson were coming for you.
And with the dick jokes.
Yes.
George Carlin, R.I.P.
Yes, yeah. George Carlin, we're coming for you with the dick jokes. Can we include more dick jokes than George Carlin did? Is that possible? We'll find out.
Trying.
This is our
It's gonna happen.
new writing goal.
Yeah.
More dick jokes than George Carlin. So, the idea with this whole story is that the collection of short stories is essentially going to be random events. Not random, but things that happen where naval vessels have very odd encounters with very real creatures. So, our opening story is going to actually be with the giant squid, where a sea vessel returns from, a submarine returns from sea sometime in the 1970s, and has these wild stories about a giant squid that attacked them. And obviously, because it's the Navy, they write it off. They're you're crazy. They see the evidence of the attack.
Stop drinking torpedo fuel. It's not made with alcohol anymore.
Yeah.
We specifically changed the formula because you kept doing that.
So please stop.
Actual thing.
What?
In
Ooh, we'll have to.
In World War II, the torpedo fuel was alcohol-based.
So yeah.
And that was when there was...
That tracks.
Yeah, that was when there was a 3 out of 5 chance that you weren't coming back if you were a submariner.
So
0 fucks were given.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even fewer. Possibly negative fucks were given.
Mm-hmm. So a few
in those days, they drank the torpedo fuel, which, by the way, not potable, super toxic, but it'll get you drunk.
Oh.
So they did. So they wound up changing the formula of the torpedo fuel, also for something that's self-oxidizing.
Mm-hmm.
Because why should you let water stop you if you're shooting a missile?
Mm-hmm. Very important, especially in the water. So
I'm going to get in trouble because I'm highly tempted because they're loading the torpedoes on soon to paint them all like bullet bills.
You should. You absolutely should. Why? Because why let fun stop you? Why let there be...
I mean, if they could paint Easter eggs for Hitler on mortar rounds in the Western Front, why can't I? Because Nintendo will sue the United States Navy and it's Nintendo, so it'll actually go to court.
The Navy will get a cease and desist letter, and they'll be like, "Why are
this submarine has been taken down by a DCMA request."
That would actually be very entertaining. That would ensure you just sit on your ass in court for like the rest of your enlistment.
They would make it terrible. I would rather be out to sea.
Yeah. These things are consistent out there, sort of.
Yeah, and then it's just gonna be tough to do a stream from Ukraine.
Yeah. So we'll set up that VPN right away. No.
Well, I could always take a train over, hop over, and go see Bob.
There you go.
Straight over to Poland.
Yeah. Bob, he'll go visit you in Poland while he's
Well, my
places.
Water places that
you're not supposed to tell us that you are. So this vessel comes back with like evidence that it's been attacked. They're telling these wild stories, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, guys, whatever." And they warn them like, "Don't send submarines into this specific part of the water," and they send it anyway. And so this second vessel is going to be based off of the Scorpion, which is a submarine that went down during the Cold War. And this submarine is going to go down.
It's yelling timber.
Yeah. I can't remember the rest of the lyrics. And then, so this is kind of where the DUA comes in, which is the Department of Underwater Anomalies, and it kind of brings them back to the surface, pun absolutely intended. They start to go deeper, and like as these incidents keep happening, we're gonna there's a character that will be my self-insert that where she either works for the DUA or maybe is a higher up in the Navy or something, or she's a researcher, she's a scientist, so I don't know where she's gonna fall. But she starts digging deeper into a lot of these things that are going on, and that's where the research sketches are going to come from, where she starts to learn about these creatures and like what could be making them do what they're doing. And so as the collection of short stories comes to a close, you're going to start seeing how they're all connected, and it's going to set the stage then for the story where one of our main protagonists, a guy who was on the submarine that was attacked by the giant squid, they were, in exchange for their silence, they were all allowed out of, the Navy early. But he's haunted by what happened. He doesn't, he can't, he hears about the Scorpion going down, and he, cannot get it out of his mind. So then he goes to the DUA and demands to be allowed to work with them, which then kind of sets the whole thing off. And so we've built a kind of a major outline. So what is the major outline?
So I think you shouldn't go to the DUA. I think nobody should really know that the DUA exists. It's one of those things that's there, but nobody bothers to look.
Yeah.
And he keeps raising a fuss trying to get into this, and then someone from the DUA goes, "Psst, hey, come here, kid."
Ooh, yeah. I like that. So here's, and then...
You want to buy a squid?
So maybe he goes to the Navy and demands...
And gets recruited by the DUA for his past experience, and because he clearly has a very big drive towards this.
Gets recruited by the DUA. I can't type. I've done enough typing apparently. Goes to the Navy, demands they investigate further. I should probably eat. This is not going well for me. And then as a result gets recruited by the DUA, which, did we make a note of where... Because I almost see this character as, like, your insert, this guy. If we're both doing self-inserts, because I'm going to feel really weird if we're both writing this and only I do a self-insert.
Mm-hmm.
So...
I kind of figured I would pop up as parts of my personality.
Yeah.
Like between Dickfish! Because that's 100% me.
Oh, that's right. You were
Without
going to
any
be
question.
the Dickfish. Not the sailor
Yeah.
with the Dickfish. You were going to be the Dickfish.
Yes, I want to be the Dickfish. That speaks only in Italian for some reason.
That's right. It can be both. It can be both. I can't remember if we wrote down anything about that poor... I think because we talked about her after the stream.
The researcher who realizes, wait a minute, these things are kind of sentient. They're like not just blindly acting; they're coordinating.
Yeah. So let's do. We got two protagonists here then. So we have.
Hooray! We can have a B story.
Yay! Former sailor, and then we have scientist, researcher,
And of course, the main protagonist,
yes,
the Dickfish.
yes. Dickfish. You're welcome. So, she's the one who draws the research sketches, the short story collection. Whoa.
First one to realize the intelligence of the creatures.
Yeah, first. The creatures. What else did we say about her? Is she so?
Questioning the morality of the mission.
Yeah.
Or ethics.
The morality and ethics of the mission / the DUA itself. Because she is part of the DUA because I think that's the only reasonable way she's going to have this information.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's part of their research team, like their team of scientists. And she's like, this seems sketchy. And then the Dickfish.
This isn't a lab rat. This is a thinking creature.
Yes, yeah. This isn't. We have to treat them like intelligent creatures, and so I think that's good there. And then we built kind of an outline of how we're gonna kind of follow this. Like Act 1 is really gonna be kind of a prequel.
The short stories.
Yeah, and it's in a sense a companion piece. I wrote this as a trilogy that follows, but do you want a trilogy or like a 10-book epic? That's a serious question.
Depends on what Penguin's willing to pay.
Fair. And this is
If I'm getting paid by the word, I'm going to be writing these books forever.
All right, Dickens, calm down. We'll start with trilogy, maybe 10 books.
Honestly, it's wherever the story takes itself.
Yeah.
If it ends after 3, it ends after 3. If it ends after 10, it ends after 10.
Yeah.
You know.
So let's say series that follows, because we do have like an end goal here. Like we're like everything is leading into Act 5, where like they encounter Cthulhu. But the kind of, I think the fun with like the encounter with Cthulhu is obviously you can't just defeat Cthulhu. Like that's not a thing.
No.
So like they win for now. So there are like
It's
even
the
if
Castlevania concept. You
Yeah.
don't kill Dracula.
Yeah. He kind of just retreats for 200
Yeah.
years. So we could even have this like take it even to as the Cold War ends. they also at the same time are encountering Cthulhu. They push him back for now, and then when there's other...
That's what actually causes the economic collapse of the Soviet Union, is their rival organization just goes broke trying to do this.
Yes. There we go. But see, like, I think, because something we had brought up before was kind of lining a lot of the stuff up with historical events. Right?
Of, like, this is what actually caused this.
Yeah,
this
like,
is what the history books say. This is
here's
what actually happened.
Say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think, like, bringing the first part of the series to the end with the end of the Cold War, and then, like, bringing it back up, like, around, let's see.
If it's cyclical like that, there's an infinite number of times it can be repeated.
Yes, yeah. And so basically every 20 years we can just revive the series.
Yes.
So, like, once we get to...
Like a
once we
damped version of Doctor Who.
Basically. But seriously, once we reach the end of, like, what we've recently had in history, which it's going to take us some time to get there anyway, like, we can kind of just keep our finger on the pulse of history.
Long enough that we can just
revive it again.
Keep going.
Yeah. Well, and I think that will allow us to keep our finger on the pulse of history and to really, like, think deeper about what's going on, even in current events. It would be really fun to try and explain COVID-19 with all of this bullshit, but...
Tiny squids.
Tiny squids. We're just
That's why your lungs fill up with water.
It's the tiny squids.
It's the tiny squids converting you for habitation.
So, shut me up if I start saying too much, but the current octopus...
Shut up.
Okay. Things...
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
This is going to be a great laugh in about 70 years when it's declassified.
I hope so. This is great. So, yeah, we have, I think what we have here is, damn it is kind of like an underwater Doctor Who.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. I tell my students all the time, stories are inspired by other stories, because they'll get, like, really stressed out if I say, oh, this reminds me of this story, and then it, like, makes them panic, and I'm like, no, this is a good thing. Like, you're thinking on the level of, like, a great author, and, like, this is good.
The good artists imitate.
Yes.
The great artists steal.
I do not tell them that.
Picasso will.
Oh, yeah, Picasso will. My poor
Picasso
student,
would be all about the dickfish.
Oh, he would love the dickfish. He would paint a painting of the dickfish to put in the book.
I mean, he painted a picture of his fucking schlong slopped over his mistress's face.
So, yes.
Yes.
He would paint a picture
Totally
of the
put that in.
dickfish.
It wasn't Guernica. It was one of the ones from his blue period. I don't remember. It was beyond the scope.
Yes, yeah. Not what we're here for, but we can... This general cycle that we've created, besides I think the short story collection needs to be unique. I think it can act as just...
An introductory companion piece.
Yeah, to everything that we write from here, like, until we are like, and we're sick of this.
How many short stories do we want to do?
This was something else I was thinking about.
Do we want to do a series of short stories, or do we want to do a novella?
Ooh. And each chapter is a different, like, it... Because
then that would be a collection of short stories.
Yeah. That's kind of... Because the idea with the short stories was for it to kind of start out with that classic, like, oh, it's, like... With one of those really epic TV shows or something, it starts out where it's just these episodic, like, incidents, and the tension gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you realize, oh, they're all connected in a very broad scale, and now we're diving into the real part, like the real thing. I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a lot like that, like the first season.
It started out as a thing of the week, and then became a whole big, like...
Epic.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that's kind of what we're going for here. So it...
Love me some Phil Coulson.
Bless his heart. So I think to have this start as maybe like a combination of both a collection of short stories and that it kind of, by the end, you're like, oh, this isn't a collection of short stories, it's a novella. Does that make sense?
Sort of a novella broken down into individual episodes.
Yeah. And by the end we
I'm sure
meet...
there's an actual term for that.
Oh, I'm sure. But and then, like, by the end we meet the scientist. Or even in the like, we could... Or, so, what this could be, which I feel like is very close to what I said, but slightly different, is have a bunch of short stories, and then, instead of a final short story, have a epilogue that then kind of opens the door to these are all connected. Where then we meet the scientist and like she's finishing up
and really actually introduce the DUA.
Mm-hmm.
Never really mentioned it in the short stories.
Yeah. And like
it's more focused on that feeling of loneliness and isolation,
mm-hmm.
of being somewhere at sea at depth where there's nothing mm-hmm. other than what you have in front of you. What's inside the skin of the ship.
And then, like, and you have nothing, and then, like, oh, and now you're also being attacked by something you have no idea what it is. And that final story, that epilogue story, can be, like, even we can show, you know, the scientist, she's finishing up the research sketch from the story that just, the previous story, and then she's, like, going to work and working through, like, we kind of opens up, like, that final scene in a... like a cutscene in a Marvel movie.
I was going to say almost like in a Men in Black sort of way of like, well, that report is done, zooms out to DUA, things going, things on screens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even like having a conversation about like, I think these sketches that you're doing are going to be valuable to our efforts, it will help us find the things and like all of that, and then, which then sets it up very beautifully for book number 1.
Yeah.
And starts with like flashbacks, and then even I think having the two main characters, so like having an A story and a B story is and telling their stories, switching back and forth, is going to help because it can establish the DUA and the beginning of the DUA, and then it can establish and that like the conflict of a person who's there like questioning the ethics of what she's doing. Alongside, then we have this story with this other character, this veteran who is haunted by what happened to him on deployment and can't get it out of his head and wants to do something about it.
Yeah.
And him being found by the DUA, and they're like, hey, we can help you. And even, I think, obviously, eventually they should meet. But I think even not even having them meeting until the end of the first book.
If they even really meet at all in anything other than tangential crossover.
Yeah, like maybe making them side characters to each other.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's that.
Which would be pretty representative of an organization like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's very much... I'm a little hesitant to call her land-based, but really land-based research and support versus... operational out there where you spend the majority of your time. Like, obviously she does field research, but that's different than being on the operational hunter-killer end.
Yeah. And even she could end up being on a support team for something. Well, I don't know if that fits with field research, but I'm thinking like ways for them to be in the same room at the same time, but not necessarily like
she's assigned to do research from that, so
and so
that's her base of operations because they're going out there. Their mission is because it's not like he's the you're captain of this submarine. No,
he's a ride along. Like he's so they can be there both for briefings and for like debriefings.
Yeah, she's in part that has a laboratory set up, and he's wherever, however we want to design the operations of these submarines.
Yeah. And so there can be like light connections between them, and like especially at least through the first couple of books, it would be interesting to see something that like was in the back of my mind with having these two characters, was eventually having them team up to like push back against the DUA, because she's questioning, at some point she's going to start questioning the morality of this when she starts realizing like, oh, these are sentient creatures, we need to be thinking twice about this, and he's already an outsider.
I like the idea of him being so obsessed with revenge.
Oh.
The little Moby Dick kind of thing that he's like,
Yeah.
I don't fucking care. I'm going to kill them all.
Yeah. And they're, like, could even...
And I'm not sure whether I want him to go full Ahab.
Yeah.
Or have
Yeah, I
him,
want
like, get to a rock bottom, eye-opening point
Mhm.
and go, wait a minute.
Yeah. Like, what
Because,
do you...
at the end of the day, it's, like, a cool idea to have them just go in full-fledged combat.
Mm-hmm. And we, like... We want them to go into full-fledged combat at some point. So at what point does he maybe... Like, do we want him to have a moment where he's like...
Well, instead of fighting just for, fighting out of hatred, fighting because... With more of a warrior's mindset rather than just a straight barbarian's mindset. He's not doing it for the blood and gore and for everything that happened to his dudes. More for the, well, no, I have something to defend. I'm doing this because this is what it is, to fight, and this is what I'm fighting for.
Yeah.
This is my job. This is my profession.
Mm-hmm.
My job is war.
Yeah.
But not with a reckless hate, which I think would be interesting to start him with that. Then character development for him.
Yeah.
And her character development is going from someone who is just sort of meek and like, I just care about my research and I want to know things, to like, I am this full person who's willing to stand up to an entire system of things because I don't think this is right.
Yeah. And push back on like what she feels is ethically terrible. So probably something we should write down.
Yeah. Also dickfish.
Also, we gotta develop the dickfish. We gotta make them a thing.
I want him to just be the Cheshire Cat of this entire series.
Where he just like shows up every once in a while. Maybe he's in the background of something.
Yeah. Says things that only make sense if you already know what's going on, which is not the point of view from that, whether we want to do it as, reliable narrator, unreliable narrator, first person, third person.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why I didn't think of this. And that's not super loud. Hang on. Okay, there we go. Okay, so hang on. He starts out seeking revenge. Over time, his focus, I'm trying to think of the right way to word this, his focus becomes more refined. Or he's, I don't like that wording.
Mindset becomes more enlightened.
Yeah, his mindset becomes more...
Not to say it's more peaceful, it's just... Instead of going out being a reckless barbarian, he's more of a samurai.
Yeah.
This is war, this is my job, this is my craft, and I will do it to defend my home. Not just because I want revenge for the guys I know that were killed. That's war. It's what happens. But instead of just being like, screw it, fucking nuke them all, it's just more like, this is the battlefield.
Yeah.
We will, go into this with a calm mind and a calm soul, despite all the chaos around us.
And that, I think, that absolutely changes the way that you fight.
Yes.
It makes you more, I think, measured and reasonable in battle, which is really important in these kinds of fights, to have that approach, because...
Especially in submarine warfare.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like you can just go, all right, full speed ahead, ramming speed.
That's
Light
dangerous.
them all up, fire for effect. It's 3D chess.
And you have to be careful and measured. And it is going to be necessary for there to be a fight.
Yes.
Because eventually they are going to
He's
discover...
not going out looking for blood.
Yeah.
It's that there is a fight to be had, and someone must be the winner and someone must be the loser.
Yeah. And ultimately, when they get as far deep down as they're going to go, they're going to see Cthulhu, and they're going to figure out that he's the one that's been, like, sending the charges.
Yes.
And so there is a very clear enemy here that has to be fought. And so the transformation isn't, oh, he decides to back down and not fight, because that's also how you get killed. He decides that he has something worth fighting for, beyond, I'm going to fuck them because they fucked me.
Yes.
So, then, okay, so for her, she's going from, so she'll start out as kind of meek, and submissive, just wants to do her research, and over time she becomes bolder, and
he goes from looking only out to being able to look in. She goes from only looking in to eventually being able to look out.
Yeah, she becomes bolder.
I mean, that's your self-insert character. I wouldn't necessarily say submissive.
Okay.
But
maybe meek and just kind of like
unconcerned with the world around her.
Yeah.
If it's not her research, she doesn't care.
So she starts out as meek and unconcerned with the world, just wants to do her research. Over time, she becomes bolder and more concerned with the repercussions of her actions and the DUA's actions. Because, like, I think kind of what's going on with her is obviously they're going to, because she's in the research side of things, they're going to be conducting really what is unethical research on these creatures, because they're like, it's kind of like when you, in the classic alien stories, when you find an alien, they're going to poke and prod them to hell, because it's like, oh, it's a new thing, and they don't really care about the harm that that's causing to the creature, like to the alien. It's going to be kind of a similar thing here, and she's like, well, at least I'm learning more about this animal, I guess it's okay. And then she realizes that these are intelligent, and that they are sentient, and they can, not only can they feel this pain, they can reason. And that's going to be a breaking point for her, where she goes like, oh shit, what have we been doing?
Yeah.
And it's going to, I think it's going to be like, the conflict is going to, there's like the research side is they're doing these unethical actions, but also like they're the front lines against whatever's happening. So there's going to also be a conflict with that, where she's like, should we fight? Like, should we do this? And I think having those, where he's like going from a more reckless fighter to a more refined fighter, and her going, should this organization even exist in the first place? And having those two things happening in parallel, I think is going to be, first, our poor readers, but second, I think it's going to be compelling, because it is like showing that this is more than just a black and white issue.
It's something that's so incredibly complex and nuanced, like a war.
Yeah.
Especially a justified war. The necessary evils that are part of it, as well as, you know, the individuals themselves and how they have to cope and change and do it in such a way that you can come back from it.
Yeah. And so in a way, she's going to have to come to decide what is and isn't acceptable.
Yes.
So.
And that could be a point of contention between the two characters, a continuous point of contention.
Yeah. And because even if they're, like, for each one, they're more side characters for the other, and they don't necessarily become main characters in each other's lives, this is still going to be, like, if they're on the same team, you know, like, submarine team, like, especially when he's, like, raging revenge boy versus she's over here, like, leave me alone so I can do my drawings, you know, like, and as they grow and change, I think they're going to butt heads even more, because there's also something that I like to call the cage stage of enlightenment, where for each of them, when they reach a point where they're like, oh shit, oh hey, I'm so sorry, I spent one of my breaks today, like a 5-minute break, and I was actually late opening a class looking for my non-drowsy allergy medicine, and I'm looking at it. Yeah. If anybody wants to know what it's like having ADHD, this is it. This was literally in my line of sight.
Also, you completely dropped the fact that we're streaming right now.
I did. I'm so sorry. I had to take half a dose of Mucinex so I would stop fucking sneezing. Oh my god. Okay, I can't look at this. I can't. Let's put it somewhere. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm so sorry. Okay. The cage stage of enlightenment.
Yes, where you temporarily become Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Yes.
Ha ha ha.
You're the Ghost Rider. No. Cage stage of enlightenment, where you're like, oh my god, everything that I ever thought was wrong, and like here's where, like, you know, where he comes to realize I need to defend my home, and she's like, oh shit, they're torturing sentient creatures, and they're both like losing their minds. And then there's this other person over here where he's like, I gotta keep fighting, but this time I have a better reason, and she's like, we have to stop. Like, that's gonna be a huge
as she
point
comes
of
up,
contention
he
with
comes
him.
down in levels of like external passion.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna reach a point where they are like at maximum conflict with each other.
Yeah, because they're both like, no, only my way is right. And then they both have to learn nuance.
Yes.
In what they're doing, and she has to come to understand that some war is necessary, and he has to come to understand that some actions in the name of war can be avoided. And
with each battle, he sees more and more loss, which makes him eventually reach a point where he has to take a step back because just constantly raging is too much.
Yeah.
And she sees the cost of not fighting back. That, just because they're sentient creatures doesn't mean they're all warm and cuddly and we can kumbaya.
Yeah, like
we don't need to like rip them apart alive, but yes, we need to defend ourselves.
If they're punching us, punch back.
Yes.
And I think in that way that gives us like their
see all of MASH.
Yes, which I still need to watch.
It's 10 seasons in a movie.
I thought the best TV shows were 6 seasons in a movie.
Not MASH. MASH is the exception.
MASH broke the rules. That's fine.
Because it breaks your heart and makes you laugh.
Ruins
the entire way through.
Yeah. I will.
Also, Alan Alda is gold.
I do. You have one time. We're like, no, you need to watch it. And I will watch it. It will happen. So. Okay. Yeah. So that's gonna be. I think. Probably should make note of like what their. I don't know how to categorize this one. We've got the sailor story, the scientist story, and then sailor and scientist encounters together. Friendship, not friendship.
I would put
Things
it as part of the protagonist subheading.
Yeah, it's under the
and then
protagonist.
have it be, halfway through their character development is the time of maximum conflict.
Right.
That's just, I would make that note.
Okay.
As they, on the first half of their character development, they become more and more in conflict with each other as they start to change their view more and more and more. And then on the second half is where they start coming more into parallel with each other. As they stop letting go of what they used to think, they're stopping letting go and they're becoming.
Yeah. They're stopping letting go and they're starting becoming.
They're not breaking down what their old habits and thoughts. They're developing the new ones.
Yeah. Just
Interactions.
There we go. And then, so what are their interactions with each other? What do you think they're going to be in the beginning? More like, oh, that person exists. That person exists.
They don't even have to directly interact with each other.
Yeah.
It can literally be like the scientist is putting out memos that are guiding policy put forth by the operations end of things. And the scientist is getting after-action reports for the purpose of data collection.
Yeah. So maybe they don't actively interact.
They don't even have to talk to each other the entire series.
Yeah. Ooh. That could be... I did put music on. Damn it. Oh. For pity's sake.
That's me.
Hang on. What about now? Now in stereo. Is that good or bad? I don't, No, I don't hear it. Damn it. Let me try this. And I meant Andrew and your computer both. Hang on, let me try this again, and then this. This. How about now? Do we have sound music now? I'm going to keep it. I do not hear it. I'm trying. Is it a volume thing? Maybe? What about now?
Alright, so...
Anyway, working on
kind of
that.
caught on the idea that these two characters don't ever have to actually directly interact and talk with each other face to face.
It could just be memos.
I was gonna say the most, you could see them glaring at each other when the other's not looking on the mess decks. Of ugh, this fucking bitch and her bleeding heart nonsense. Doesn't she realize we're at war? This stupid thug. All he wants to do is kill these beautiful fascinating new creatures. And it gets to they come to understand each other without ever having to directly impact each other, or directly interact with each other. It's a fascinating concept of how people in your life that are not directly in your life have influence and shape to your experience.
Yeah.
In that, you know, you shape the world around you. You cast the stone into the pond, but you don't ever really see where the ripples go usually. If you're very, very lucky, you do.
Yeah.
But it would be kind of interesting to explore that of these two characters that are trapped on a submarine together. It doesn't get much closer than that, but still manage to stay apart, and how it just becomes a microcosm of the world. Because life on a submarine very much is a microcosm of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be kind of fun. It's almost like a little thought experiment.
Yeah.
Like, how do things actually play out with each other in that aspect? For the sake of, you know, exploring certain social phenomena and you know, bits of life.
Yeah.
Of like, how does your actions in your part of society ripple back to people who seemingly don't really are in a completely separate thing? That, you know, by a surface glance, you would never really be like, oh yeah, the things I do affect them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, yes, they do.
Yeah. The things that
you're
we
not,
do.
Yeah, you're not going in there and saying, hey, you got to do this way now. But the little things you do to be, you know, your contributions to the whole, whether it be the actions of the ship or how society reacts to certain information, it has a rippling effect on everyone else.
Yeah. So our individual contributions affect the whole. I can't. Contributions affect the whole. Yeah. I like that. I like this idea that they could, well, and especially that they could have such a profound impact on each other without ever having spoken. And even, like, that can be done in so many ways where, like, he notices the tone of her memos changing, or she sees something that he does and she's like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way before. Or she even they can have, like, maybe she runs a meeting and, like, lays out a bunch of stuff.
And he's just sitting there in the back, and initially he's just like,
fucking this person again, yeah. And
or
then,
like staring at the ceiling, counting the holes in the tiles, and, you know.
And then she says something that makes him sit up and go, wait a minute.
Or that's how his reaction is initially to the meetings, and by the end he's paying attention. Which also kind of makes for this whole yin and yang of the A story and B story. And this whole, you know, this through theme with their character development of reaching balance.
Not sure how to type this.
I think the A story should be the sailor, because it's largely going to be focused on the experience and the environment of this submarine going through the deep, having to do things, because that's mostly the description. And then the B story is just the researcher, because you can do a lot of exposition with the researcher, and you don't want that part to be too long, because otherwise it becomes a whole lot of nothing. This way you don't reveal too much, or you wind up having it too long, in which case you have to keep revealing things just to keep that part compelling.
And to keep it interesting, researcher, mainly exposition.
You can almost do her side as just her reports and like meeting notes, and you know, the way she experiences the world is in documenting her experiences as a researcher.
Yeah.
And his is almost more like a ship's log. Although I don't like the idea of his being so perfunctory.
Yeah.
I like the idea of this yin and yang between the two characters, the two stories.
He's experiencing the story.
Maybe it's almost like a C story.
Like the ship logs?
Well, the ship's logs would be a lot more perfunctory, like
so making the ship's logs the C story, or?
No, not doing like the ship's logs. Instead, doing it like a C story of like...
Oh, I see.
So there we were.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying now. Not like...
As opposed to 17th December.
I did
1970 thing. You know, whatever.
Well, and even we could open his chapters with the ship log, though.
Yes, that would be kind of neat.
Let's see. And so the fun with hers, open his chapters with ships logs. So the fun thing that we could do with her is we have, especially if we do it mostly through reports and meeting notes, is we can have, there's like kind of a fun thing that you can do in, like when you're structuring like a page. So you can have like maybe her meeting agenda. And then in the margins, we can put like her notes from the meeting, and at the bottom, like that asshole isn't paying attention again. Like, find way to engage him, or maybe she complains to a coworker on the surface about him. Like it's an email from her, like with some of her findings, and then she says also, you know, petty officer so and so is being a real dick again. Like any advice, you know, something like that. Like he's not paying attention, or. Like an email back home, like, oh, can you believe this guy, kind of thing. Like, not just that, but ways that we can show her disdain for him.
Her stuff is still very much documentation and emails and what, you know, formal writing and documentation of experiences.
Instead
be
of
it
a
research
narrative,
notes or emails, even if they're personal emails, to give it those touches. And kind of cool to see it on a page, almost as if you have this kind of Red Book of West March sort of thing of like you've discovered this sequence of documents.
Yes.
And like you see her notes scrawled in the margin, like her personal ideas.
Like,
which would be a nightmare for the printers, but fuck them.
Oh my word, yeah, fuck them, because that's what would make this story so much fun though, is to like the sailors like opening with the ship's logs and then having the narrative surrounding him, and then for the scientist where all we see of her are her research notes, her meeting agendas, her emails, whether they be personal or, you know, professional, or like professional but with like a personal touch, like, hey, you're my bestie on this, like you're my work bestie, can you believe what's going on, or like I'm really frustrated about this. Inter-office memos, and like the way that we can see her development through those things, because I think it would be really fun for the readers to have a mix of that.
Have the ship's log just have redacted portions on it.
Yes.
Like, ship's heading, this bearing. Ship speed, this speed. Ship's location, black bar.
Yes. Or even it would be fun on the researchers.
Ship's depth, black bar. Or like has the first digit, but then like the bar
is like
goes
super
for,
long.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be so much fun. And even on her site, because she's not a sailor, she makes some mistakes in some of her initial emails, and she like reveals certain things, but it's all like blacked out, or it's like I don't know how they would do that with emails. Like
they read them before they send them out.
Right, but would they like just not send the email, or would they just pull out the information that's wrong?
They would.
That's not supposed to be sent.
If there's enough information that's wrong, they just wouldn't send the email. If there's little bits and pieces, they can just black bar it digitally.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, so we could have like digital black bar things.
Then again, they're all lazy, so they would just not send the email because they don't fucking care because it doesn't affect them.
So it could be even like a return to sender.
Last summer.
Yeah. Did I miss emails from you because of that? Is that
possibly? I don't know. Screw radio.
Yeah. Do they just not?
IT work now.
Do they just not tell you when they don't send an email?
No. They don't give a shit. It doesn't affect them. Does not affect their happiness. Does affect their workload.
Okay, so this could be really funny. So when they first go under the water, the first time she's able to send an email, maybe she like isn't thinking about this. Like, again, she's not a sailor. She's like writing an email back home to her mom, and like you get this whole email, and we could include it in the story where she's like, and then we went this deep, and we did this thing, and we're doing all this cool shit, and then the next
you just
email,
see in like the top header of it, like not sent due to security purposes. Security purposes.
And then her next email that she sends is to her mom, like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been sending you emails, and Could just be like a really funny thing where like every once in a while she sends an email to her mom or her best friend or something that doesn't get sent because she sends too much and nobody tells her. And she doesn't know where her emails are going.
She doesn't realize they're not getting sent at all. And nobody's bothering to tell her because, you know, like, it's not a violation of OPSEC if you don't violate OPSEC.
Yeah.
And if radio doesn't send your emails,
then
you haven't violated OPSEC.
Yeah. And maybe, like, she could, like, send out a memo, like, by the way, I think some of my emails aren't getting sent. Could someone look into that? And someone goes back, like, you violated OPSEC, you bitch. Or something. You
Some
dumb bitch.
salty-ass third-class radio man. It's like, do you have any idea how much your stupid shit I've had to sort through?
Someone didn't listen to the OPSEC briefing. It's like, oh, was that important? Full ADHD moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there could I think it would be a really funny thing to include, just like that she just has no idea how this works. Yeah, I like that mainly. So just
You can still info dump things.
yeah. Well, it, like that's a way to info dump things is though through these like reports, meeting notes, emails, because if she's got someone that she's reporting back to on the surface,
That
you know,
wouldn't get redacted.
yeah, that information wouldn't get redacted. So maybe on the ship's log, the depth is redacted, but then later on, you see an email to her boss, and she says something about the depth, and you're like, oh shit, you know.
It
That's
would be
a silly
really
example,
funny.
but-
It like shows two sides of her.
Mhm.
Of like these, you know, the report ones are like
Very
super professional, and the email ones are like, you're not gonna believe what I saw.
Yeah, a dick fish, and it only speaks Italian.
Where like she goes from like super professional, super stoic researcher mode to like that 10-year-old who's super fascinated by the world around them. That's the reason they got into science.
And she's just like losing her shit.
Yeah.
So excited. Yeah, I like that. And so that's a way that we can still like see her develop as a character while also creating this really fascinating like found information where it's like, oh, you found this and now you get to learn the story. And even
Almost do it like you're a new executive at the DUA. Here's a bunch of, you know, here's part of your in brief.
Okay. If we're gonna go full like this.
Oh, what about this incident from that time in the 90s?
Yeah.
Like
So what
the
if
Illithid Wars.
what if for the narrative for the sailor, what if he keeps a journal? So would that make sense? Would that
Yeah.
Is that-
I'm not
would that
sure
be if
that would be
you
too
know
much
someone who keeps-
overlap.
yeah. Well-
I kept a journal.
So if
Like, it's definitely a thing, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure for stylistic purposes we would want that because it's a little too much overlap
right.
with the style of her doing her reports, unless we wanted
So my
to
thought
do the whole thing just as...
yeah. So that was
because it
my
could be audio logs
Yes.
of, like, him relating his experiences during a debrief.
yes. So that's kind of what I was going for was like this like found. If we're going for like found information or like here's what you need to know about this. So like we can kind of do like a callback kind of thing. So like obviously this first set of stories is going to take place during the Cold War. So maybe whatever time period the next set of stories takes place in. So like I'm just throwing this out there, like Desert Storm, which doesn't make any sense because it didn't take place anywhere near the water. But you know, but if like so.
Riding shy hoods.
You know, it's fine. That's just the first thing that came to mind. So, like, someone's being...
Grab onto a 50 cal.
Yeah. So someone's
Man,
being...
they need to put gyros on this thing.
Someone's being...
Blessed be his reign.
So they're introducing a new officer to this, and they're like, we got it.
Take that, Frank Herbert.
And they're like, oh, you have to, like, you need to learn this information, and there are some things that you should know about.
I was kind of thinking of just using it almost like bookends as a framing of the story, you know, where, like, the whole story is told, like, very, very, very beginning and, like, very, very, very end of the story is where it's like the whole thing is told as basically flashbacks, tales being related, that sort of thing. It's like, okay, you're the new dude. Here's some stuff you need to know about.
Yeah.
Like,
here's
and then
this.
everything
that's
else.
What I'm saying. Yeah.
Like, there's not. At no point do you really flash in and out of present dude.
No. That I wasn't saying we were gonna flash in and out. I was just saying like it could be the idea could be that a person in the present is getting this information, and even that could be something that's not necessarily revealed until the end, like in the epilogue, which then would introduce the next series. Yeah. The new time frame that the next series is going to be in.
And it's that dude who is reading the end brief.
Who is going to be the new main character.
Yeah.
And I think that could be fun. And then we could still have a narrative with your main character, because with these audio briefs,
then you can keep
he's
the entire
telling the
universe and just change the entire tone of writing. Instead of being found information, it's just a direct narrative.
Yes. Yeah. And so then it's like this guy telling his story, and you can even shift it into from like, well, when I was on the ship this day, and then it like shifts into a third-person narrative. Like you can totally do that. So I think that could be a fun way to do that, because then it allows even when we wrap it up, like with the Cthulhu encounter, that it's like, and well, you're reading this because it's a problem again, and new things are happening, and then that opens the door for another set of stories.
He's getting this in brief because now these files are being unsealed because the problem has reoccurred.
Yeah. Storytelling approach, I think is how we want to...
Which also gives it this kind of... lends itself to the cyclical nature of, like, the DUA has always existed in some form since man took to the sea 7,000 years ago.
And this even allows us to, if we want, so we're obviously our first set of stories...
Water, not the sea.
Yeah. We're centering our first set of stories around the time of the Cold War. We can also take it backwards. That allows us to go backwards, too. Okay, so storytelling approach, told through debriefs, audio, debrief, sailor telling his story, memos, emails, reports from scientists, main narrative focus. Memos, emails, reports from scientists.
That's just the exposition, though.
Yeah. Exposition things. How do I articulate this so we don't forget what it means?
The problem has reoccurred.
Problem has reoccurred, so the sealed documents are being opened and
presented to the new
operational commander.
Because then we can take a whole different thing, and then it can be very, very like Thunder Below kind of stuff, where instead of focusing on this, random enlisted dude and this random scientist, now you can take it in a like a war epic kind of way, or like take that to like he directs, this, and then it zooms in on, whatever's going on.
Well, the problem has reoccurred. The sealed documents are being opened and presented to the new he will be the protagonist of the next series. Epilogue shows him reacting. Of first series. Shows him that. And then, so that allows
then that
for...
lets us do a trilogy in a larger series.
Nature of the story allows for a trilogy in the broader series. And maybe each set of stories could be a trilogy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Potentially.
It allows for a closed circle.
Yes.
You have a completion of each cycle, but it can be repeated an infinite number of times.
Yeah. Which
so
then,
you have a full story. You don't just kind of leave off on, well...
And it's, but it opens the door for, like, it's all a closed circle.
We know this happens over and over again. Because
Yeah.
it's always happened over and over again.
Because
and it's getting more and more serious, the more and more complex. The problem is getting more and more complex, the more and more we're able to take the fight to them.
Yes.
We're not just smacking squids on the surface with oars anymore.
Yeah.
We are building machines. We are organizing. We have, technology and warp ships that can go to where this is coming from.
And go even deeper and deeper. And, like, because as we move into the future, technology is going to get better and better.
Yes.
So I think that's going to be something cool, too, as it becomes more sophisticated, the kind of warfare that they engage in. So... At
which point it just kind of becomes, far enough, it just kind of becomes a space opera underwater.
Yeah, basically. So...
Instead of, what started out as just kind of like Tales from the Deep, short stories, scary stories, for submarines that are, really in the infancy of its technology. For how long the concept's been around, the modern concept of it is still 120 years old.
So, we'll be able to, like, we can even take it into, like, eventually take it into
and throw
future.
in, like, fun little, in-universe facts of, like, the reason World War II had such massive submarine casualties was not the Japanese.
It was something else going on underneath.
Half of those ones that just didn't come back
Just
didn't come back. There was nothing. There was just, they were gone.
Which can even be something that comes up at some point in this initial cycle. That, and maybe this can be something for the scientist where she discovers, because she's over here like, oh, but they're people. Not really, but like, oh, but they're sentient. Like, oh, they're intelligent. We shouldn't be hurting them.
That doesn't mean they're people.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't meaning like that. Oh, but they're people.
I understood.
My brain was doing
they're
things.
sentient, thinking creatures.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they share the same moral and ethical values that we do.
Exactly.
And if they're willing to do violence,
they will do it.
Yeah.
And that can even be something that they
still have a large animal instinct to them, and they're also being brainwashed by Cthulhu.
Yeah. So, also that. But maybe she learns about what was going on in World War II, and that's kind of her eye-opener, like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be torturing them, like putting them on a metal plate and poking and prodding them, but also we have to fight them.
Yeah, and that just kind of becomes the turning point of her letting go to becoming.
Yeah. Let's see.
Of realizing, oh wait, these things will do a lot of harm.
Yeah.
Left unchecked.
Although these creatures are intelligent, they will absolutely do harm if left unchecked. So, yeah.
Like parentheses, do not share human moral and ethical values.
Sure. Human moral and ethical values. Yeah.
Which becomes kind of a fun exploration of, like, things you take for granted, things you make on a basis of assumption of, like, that's what's good, that's what's bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it makes sense in the context of, 1, how your species interacts and propagates, 2, the society you're born into, 3, the time you're born into.
Yes.
So what if something else that had completely different circumstances of life, it's not to say that they don't have moral and ethical values, it's that based on what life is for them, it's a completely different subset.
Yeah, they're not the same.
Yes. You could see that within human cultures. Imagine something completely alien to that experience.
Yeah. It goes even deeper, because I think in human cultures there in some ways is kind of there's an overarching mindset, but at the same time, every culture is different in what they view as morally acceptable, and ethically acceptable, and even like things as basic as what is and isn't good manners is different in different cultures. Like some cultures will be offended if you take off your shoes in their house, and some cultures will be offended if you don't. Which that's a very simplistic
I feel like there's manners is like a very high functioning version of that.
Yeah.
You get down to like very low functioning of like, for the most part, don't kill, don't eat people, don't sleep with your family members.
Yeah.
Or like pretty baseline
thing that everyone agrees like maybe let's not on that. So.
Which also come from large like biological and survival things. Like, yeah. Incest thins out the gene pool too much. You don't have healthy offspring.
Yeah.
Cousins notwithstanding, it's strictly from a biological standpoint. See the episode of Community where they had the writer come out for the whole incest cousin wedding thing. Poor Garrett. We saved Garrett. Did we?
Did we though?
Like, don't eat people because prion diseases are a thing.
And then
don't kill is just kind of like the basis of the social contract.
Yeah, like maybe
unless it's a very highly stylized and ritualized and socially agreed upon manner. I don't know, there's a duel we both consented to it. You know, sometimes you just gotta kill a motherfucker. Sometimes a man just needs killing. I quote a man who used that as his defense in the Old West, and the judge agreed with him. Because
he got
the
off?
Old West.
Yeah, that sounds about
Why
right.
did you shoot him? Sometimes a man just needs killing.
He just needed to die. That was all.
He shot a cow once.
Oh yeah. Sometimes a man.
Which is still an extrajudicial killing, but you know,
there was a
social context.
Yeah.
Of like, there goes your entire livelihood. You're going to starve to death now. Good luck feeding your family.
Yeah.
Well, I caught him stealing my cattle, so I shot him.
There's actually
Why'd you shoot him? Sometimes a man just needs killing. This man had a history of stealing cattle. Sometimes a man just needs killing.
Well, there's even actually, like, nowadays, stand your ground laws related specifically to that. Like, if somebody, in certain states, if someone breaks into your home, you have every right to kill them. So, it matches, it fits.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then, like, even, like, killing in self-defense, like, if you think your life or the life of someone you love is in danger, you have the right to kill. So that's another, like, so there are instances societally that occurs.
Yeah, it's very specific instances. It's mostly like, these are the exceptions to this general rule.
Yeah.
It's pretty much everywhere, like, you can't just go around and kill someone because you don't like their face.
Yeah, that's not how this works. You taunt them from afar and hope they disappear. Like, that's not a bad. You taunt them from afar and hope they leave you alone. You don't like your face. See, I can be really mean.
That was code for bully them until they killed themselves.
No, that's what I was trying not to say. That's what I was trying not to say. Some people just need to be bullied. It's fine.
Said the teacher.
I do not encourage bullying in my classes. I teach people.
Strictly outside the classes. It's okay then.
I teach them how to be nice. I actually had a kid yesterday who did the 6-year-old equivalent of "you're stupid and also dumb," and I was like, "No, sir, we are not using these words today." And then he like tried to get off. He was like, I'm sorry, it's not my fault. I was like, okay.
It is. That does not absolve you of the punishment. Good on you for accepting responsibility. That
doesn't
usually
change
means
anything.
The sentence gets a little bit lighter when you admit you understand the consequences of your actions.
When you plead not guilty, you get fewer years in jail. Or when you plead guilty, you get fewer years in jail. And I was like, we're going to learn from this. We're going to learn the words we use when we're frustrated or we feel things are unfair.
Go fuck a goat.
No. No.
Cock juggling thunder cunt.
No. There occasionally, sometimes my students will say something, or I'll have to have a conversation with my students, and like this little voice in my head goes, Andrew would totally say fuck right now.
Jesus, fuck, what's wrong with you kids?
Basically. I'm like,
Christ on sale!
and like this other voice goes in, and that's why you're the teacher and he's not.
Facts.
That's why you teach the tiny humans.
The tiny humans would be very, very learned, and also completely unable to be taken anywhere.
They'd be
much like their teacher.
Yes. And now I'm just like imagining like an entire class of first graders that can talk like a sailor. Like,
the funny part is, picture this: I was a contributing member to the Met and used to go to the opera all the time in my tuxedo.
I mean, I fully believe that. Partly because you told me that before.
But, like,
so.
Picture the juxtaposition of how I am on a daily basis versus me in a high society setting.
And, like, a fancy boy, like, tux and...
glass of champagne in hand.
Pinky out, like, doing the whole thing. I could see it. Ladies, he's single.
Yes, indeed. Fuck the poor. Well stated, sir. Well stated. My life is so strange. It has just been
You are so strange.
It has just been one continuous weird, zero
thing
context.
After another.
Yeah. Non sequitur after another.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. But it wouldn't be you if it was any other way.
It's like if you took... I think you should leave and just made it 32 years long.
Basically.
I have never gotten kicked out of a meeting for choking on food at work, but I snuck in. I always managed to eat it.
I'm gonna say, you've definitely snuck food into a meeting, like...
I don't even sneak it.
You just walk in very openly?
Yes. Are you eating in this meeting? Like, we're working through my lunch. Screw you, I'm hungry. See, I'm hangry already. You should let me eat this taco.
Let me eat my food. So...
I will drag your deepest, darkest secrets out for the light of the world, kicking and screaming. Do you want us to order in? Yes, please. He already has food. Get him more.
More food. This reminds me of in college. My college used to make a really big deal out of like how you weren't supposed to have like food and drink in the classroom. And they made an announcement in chapel once about like, and I might be getting part of the story wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is how it went. I know the end part of this. They made an announcement in chapel, or like it happened over email, or somebody, like the teachers were supposed to say something in class. All the while, my best friend and I were sitting in the front row of a class, and every single class period we had candy. Like, we would have just, like, a giant bag of, like, jelly beans or M&Ms or, like, Hershey's Kisses, and we would share with the teacher.
Yes, if you make the authorities complicit in your crimes, then they won't enforce the rules. How do you think Congress works?
It was just, like, they'd be going on, like, it's like those memes about, like, in high school, your teachers are like, oh, college is going to be so serious and professional, and, like, your teacher comes, like, and you're not going to be able to eat in class, so eat breakfast beforehand, like, the teacher comes and...
Teacher rolls up in sweats with like, a coffee mug filled with vodka.
Yes, and, like, a box of donuts, like, here, guys, pass these out, like...
Those weren't the syllabi. Oh,
Oops.
well, pass them out. These two.
And the not giving a shit kind of thing. And then that was one of the professors that I had that I felt like he went through some really, really hard stuff the year before I had him as a professor. Like really, just really, really devastating things in his family. And I think it like unleashed this side of him that just sincerely stopped giving a shit.
Yeah, it turns out when you lift the relief valve.
Everything, yeah. And he... Okay.
I used to be way more uptight and like super concerned about everything. And then eventually enough shit happened all at the same time that it just went click. And I haven't given a fuck since.
And he was like the conservative Christian version of that. And it actually made the class way better. Like, I think, like, we did things in that class that he had never done before with this particular class. And, like, had conversations that he never would have been willing to have before. And,
whoa,
and
you're telling me an open exchange of ideas in a relaxed and safe environment is conducive to learning, especially at a place where the entire point is to question the world around you and draw your own conclusions from it, under the guidance of someone who's done it professionally and proven themselves before? What a fucking concept.
Sometimes I really want to just be able to go back in time and redo college. But also I met my best friend in college, and like I can't can I have a situation where I can redo college in a real school and still meet her? She's from Maryland, so we could have found each other in another college, I guess.
I still wound up out here.
Yeah, and you're from Jersey, so I think that's the thing, like,
you're from Washington, I'm from Jersey. We met in South Carolina and still wound up, well, no, I actually met in Orlando.
Yeah. But yes, the origin story. Because we never actually, I don't know if we were ever in the same room in South Carolina.
Possibly. I drank a lot in South Carolina.
The only time I can think of where I was in a room with a bunch of people that I didn't necessarily know, there's a couple of times. One, when we graduated from A school, which you were a mechanic. Yeah, he was a little ahead of you. And then when Reed and I first started dating, I drove down to visit him, and I went to the Hansons, and I walked in, and there were all of these guys sitting in their living room, like, had to be at least 10 of them, like, all playing, like, various games on their laptop, and there were, like, pizzas everywhere, and and it was dark, and I couldn't find Reed. It was so awkward.
I may have been there.
I've
been in the Hansons a couple times.
Yeah. And somebody offered me pizza, and because I was hungry, because I hadn't had dinner, but I couldn't take it because I can't have pizza, and we'll just pretend that was you. And it
quite possibly could have been.
And so that's the only time, because I never...
You weren't there for Thor's 21st birthday, were you?
No, I was not. We weren't really drinkers back then, so... Reed was maybe around. I feel like he told me about it.
Yeah, that poor boy. I showed him exactly where his limits were.
Hey, I mean, now he knows.
He also got me back.
Yeah. Not surprised.
Massively over-serving me Sailor Jerry's at my own home.
Nice. If you're watching. Those days were so good. Yes, they were. They were. Well, and even...
They can be again, if I ever hear back from the realtor.
Yeah, yeah. Did you click the make an offer thing, or did you just, like, send an inquiry?
I sent an inquiry. I sent an email saying I'm making an offer on this property for this much.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow up. I'm actually going to follow up through the Redfin realtor, too.
Yeah,
so
do that.
I beat my realtor and put him in front of his house.
Yeah. And also...
Because I already have the application in through
Evergreen?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Did you tell them that I sent you?
There wasn't really an option for that.
Okay.
I mean, I will follow up because I do have to send a follow-up email.
Yeah.
With a couple of the documents, but...
Yeah. If you tell them that I sent you, I think, feeling there's a benefit from it.
Yes. I'll make sure.
Yeah.
My follow-up email.
He spent...
Yes, he did spend the night
befriending the track
half in the can.
So I heard the story of what happened to Thor because Rita and I were still very hesitant about drinking at that point, and I was in seminary, and like I couldn't, like I was not allowed at all. And so we were talking about like 21st birthdays because Reed turned 21, I think, while we were dating. And yes, because I turned 23, and he talked about how like someone had gotten Thor like wildly drunk, and like he was so. And I was like, oh, well, don't tell that guy you're turning 21. So.
Yep,
at one point.
That was me.
At one point, I told my husband to tell you when his birthday was. And now look at us.
One Thanksgiving later.
Yeah. I mean, we've known each other since far before that Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But yeah, our origin story, Orlando.
Yeah. weird things. I was 14. No, electric light parade, I was 17.
I was going to say, I would have been 13.
Yeah.
So weird.
Of all the places I've bounced around on the planet, all the times I've been, like, just to be lined up there at that time.
Yeah. And then to, like, meet each other, like, 10 years later. Or more than that, really. 15 years later, how old am I? Yeah, oh, fuck. But for anyone listening that doesn't know that story, Andrew and I were at Disney World at the same time back in 2007.
Not just at the same time. She watched me go by in the electric light parade because I played in marching band in high school and we were nationally competitive, so we got invited to go do things.
Yeah.
And at one point, my senior year of high school, we played the electric light parade in Disney World in Orlando. And she sat and watched as we went by.
Because I was there for my brother's birthday.
I was one saxophone ahead of the entire section by myself.
Damn!
So you absolutely saw me.
100% saw you.
We were right in front of the Chernobog float.
See, and I was trying to find pictures the other day from that trip to see if I could find pictures of any, because I remember there
It'd
being...
be wild if there was a picture. I'm like, yep, that's me.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have any pictures from the light parade, because this was like pre-Facebook, or like pre when my dad had Facebook, so I don't even know where those pictures are anymore, because I found pictures from our 2009 trip recently, and I was like, oh, was this the origin story? And I was like, wait, no, that's 2 years too late. So, although if you were there in February of 2009.
Entirely possible. I used to get to Disney
You've been
World
a lot.
like every year.
Yeah.
That year, that was the first time I went 3 times in that 12-month span.
In 2009?
In 2007.
Okay.
I went senior year when I marched. I went with my parents during the summer, and then I went again for spring break. The one where I faked the funeral to get out of going to finals.
Oh, yes.
With my friend's black grandfather.
I mean, someone could have been adopted. It's fine.
I remember the look on the registrar's face. She just was like, you know what? No, I am not opening this can of worms. You can take your finals. I'll schedule this for you.
Not 20 life.
9/10 of getting away with something is having the stones do it in the first place.
It's true. Mine was just openly eating candy in front of my college professor.
Mine was blowing off finals week to go to Disney World for a week, coming back, faking a funeral, and then taking my test, passing all my classes, and then going on spring break for a week. One of the greatest pieces of bullshit I've ever pulled off.
That you have to find a way to match that at some point.
I really don't want to push my luck that much.
There. That will be the greatest bullshit accomplishment. So peaking in college.
Fine by me. The bullshit's far more subtle these days.
I mean, that's where the real fun begins.
Inventing a job.
Yes. Here.
There's this problem. Only I can solve it. Okay, well, I'll take care of this. Well, I'm going to need time to take care of this. Okay, now this is my specialty. Oh, the organization that oversees this. Yeah, no, you need a guy to do this, because look at the things that I'm doing compared to all the other people that, like, don't get this done in their departments. And, like, contract's up in 3 years and available for hire.
Wow. So then you'll just be able to walk right into having a job.
Yes.
Do you really want to keep working with them?
Depends on how much they pay. Because that is not the U.S. government. That's a private company. That is the prime contractor for that stuff.
That is a fair point. Oh.
They pay lots of money. And I have a good working relationship with a lot of people there. They're really nice and they're really smart. And I don't know, it's nice to be acknowledged once in a while when they ask specifically for me to talk about things because they want someone with an engineering background to talk to them because they don't want to talk to the dum-dums.
Yeah. So, you're a smart.
Yes.
Well, we should go back to this, but I think we have some good...
I think we have the basis.
Mm-hmm. Well, so how many... I guess, so the question that we asked at the beginning of this rabbit trail that did not get answered is how many short stories do we want?
I feel like 4 or 5 20-page short stories would be good. I don't think the collection of short stories should really be more than 100 pages.
Yeah.
Plus or minus.
So, I think...
Plus or minus 10 or 15 pages.
Yeah, I was leaning towards 5, so I think 5 in an epilogue.
Yeah, and the epilogue would be like 10 pages. 10 pages long. Short epilogue, 5 pages. Short epilogue.
5 stories and an epilogue. Epilogue introduces scientist character. And this could be the one time that we see her from a narrative perspective and from a memo perspective.
Well, because we have a little bit more free license to do things differently with the collection of short stories because it's a companion piece, not a direct continuation of the work.
Yeah, exactly. So we need 2 more. We have 3, maybe memoirs or recounts of events from different time periods. Ooh. For the short stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
you know what?
I'm not sure that would be good for the short stories because the short stories are really supposed to be kind of more this singular alone in the dark experience for the submarine crew.
Yeah. And
we have no idea what's going on. We're under attack. It's not continuous assault. It's more like a ghost ship story kind of deal where we are someplace off, out of communication with the rest of the world. This is it. Whatever is around you is the only thing that exists as far as the human realm is concerned. And all of a sudden, it goes from just like against the hull to like, hey, we have damage. Hey, we have systems that need to be repaired. Hey, we have systems that are down. Like all of a sudden, bam, sonar dome is crushed. Like, how did it get crushed? Did we hit something? No, something hit us.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're blind
something is
now.
intact. Yeah.
Well, we need to surface. We can't surface.
And then we're down.
We're someplace we're not supposed to be. You know. ... Like, encounters with each short story should only have... I mean, like, it would be neat to have each short story only be one of the creatures. Like, that is, you know, and like, it kind of gives you more of a... an in-person perspective, a first-person perspective without any context as to like what it feels like to be attacked by one of these things. Because like you can't see them, you're on a submarine.
Yeah.
Of like we don't know what's going on, we have no information, and this is what it's like to encounter one of these creatures, and you can't see it. You have no means of your normal senses. You're literally just working with what the displays give you and what you can glean from the information around. Like, you know, characters being shrewd and going, well, it sounded like something attached to the hull and then detached from the hull. Almost like a suction cup. Oh, maybe it has suction, you know, stickers.
So what could it be? And so as they have to piece together what it is.
They never quite get there because it's more fun if it's left as a mystery of this like, oh my god, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. Which actually, speaking of the giant squid one, do we... Because obviously we're going to have 2 encounters with the giant squid. One where the first ship comes back with their story and the scorpion gets sent out and never comes back.
That should be the 4th story. Or the 5th story. Whatever the last story is before the epilogue should be the scorpion one, where the DOA gets founded.
Do we want...
the modern incarnation of the DOA gets founded.
So maybe... Okay. So... Yeah. So, sorry, brain glitching. Okay. Story 5. Giant squid. Squid. Scorpion. So, this is...
Crushed by a giant pound sterling.
Opens...
in East End, London.
Yes.
Oh, blimey, it's the giant squid!
Yes. And there's a submarine in East End, London for some reason.
Because they stole it. Because it's East End, London.
Yes. And also because we're going real Doctor Who here. Because there is a Doctor Who episode where they are in a giant whale that's in space. So... okay, so this like, okay, so it opens with a crew of sailors returning from sea with a wild story about a giant squid attack or a giant sea monster attack. A sea monster attack. Because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And then, because we have notes about this somewhere else, so I don't want to get too
neat for like the first one to mostly take place on land and flash back to that, and then the second, third, and fourth story are just kind of narrative, and then the fifth story is the one that's just straight narrative, where it's the Scorpion analog that gets lost, and then epilogue, introduce researcher going through this stuff.
Right.
And collection of short stories begin book one.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is I'm writing this as noting it as story 5. Like submarine has obvious battle marks. Nobody believes them. Another vessel, based on the Scorpion, is sent out to the same area to patrol and never comes back. Prompts the modern incarnation of the DUA. The epilogue. Scientist character finishing giant squid. Ooh, again, cannot type giant squid. Research sketch.
Maybe not finishing the sketch, but just drawing what she can. Like, drawing from conclusions she's drawn based on the stories and the research she has.
Yeah.
Like, I need to go out there if I'm going to learn more.
Yeah, based on the stories she's read, it's revealed she's the one who is the source of the sketches for each story, which then even like allows for like, you know, not all of my sketches are super detailed, and that allows for them to not be as detailed.
Yeah.
She's the one who's the source of the sketches for each story. She
needs field research.
She realizes that if she's going to figure out what's going on, she needs to be able to join a field team and do field research. Goes to her boss and asks.
I almost don't think you need the goes to the boss. Just the point of like ending on, I need to be out there. I need to be out there.
If
I'm going to figure this out, I need to be out there.
Yeah.
Which kind of leaves it to this like open-ended like escalation.
Where does she need to be?
Yeah.
Like what is she part of? What organization is she part of? So it like hints towards the DUA but doesn't name it yet.
Yeah, because it's an epilogue and it's a collection of short stories. So using a lot of shorthands for, you know, obviously the readers can draw their own conclusion of like, yes, she's going to have to go out there and go to submarine, do these things, and that's going to require bureaucracy. We don't need to write the bureaucracy into the short stories, especially what we're trying to keep to like a 5-page epilogue.
Exactly. So, she realizes she's going to build team and do research. Okay, so we've got here I'll do story 1, story 2, 3, story 4. So what? Oh, what are you words? Okay, so the other 2 creatures we've researched so far are the anglerfish and the bloody belly comb jelly, the dick fish.
Dead fish.
So I think for next week we'll have to pick 2. We'll have to focus mainly on researching 2 more jellyfish, 2 more creatures to research to add to the short stories, and like
I kind of want to keep them varied. Like the mantis shrimp would be a good one.
Yeah, do you want to do the mantis shrimp for one of these?
Yes.
So something that we have.
I kind of want to use it as like a setup to
bigger things.
Yes, but specifically like some of the main sea creatures we want to use.
Yes.
Like the anglerfish.
Yeah.
The giant squid. The jellyfish. The mantis shrimp. And then what's going to be, unless we want to reuse the colossal squid as the one that finishes the last submarine in story 5.
Maybe. Because something I was going to say is with these short stories, just because we use a creature in a short story doesn't mean they can't come up later.
I want it specifically to come up later.
Because they're going to come up later,
In the books.
Yes.
I kind of want to use each short story to introduce one of the main...
one of the main creatures.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
And
okay, I'm
from a narrative, first-person kind of view, without any information knowing what this creature is or how it's attacking or any of the description we would do in a more lengthy work to fill it out and make it more interesting and full of describing the enemy. I just want I want each short story to be kind of what's the experience of going against this thing completely,
when you don't know what it is.
With no information and no data outside of the boat itself.
So I'm just writing these down, not in particular.
Okay, things start just blowing apart.
Yeah.
Like a little at first, like one thing, two things, like bang against the hull at first.
Right. Okay, this one I want to...
Does that pipe look closer than it used to be?
Ooh.
Kind of stuff, and then escalate till this submarine is they're throwing pipe patches on everything, they're crimping pipes, they're doing all sorts of stuff just to keep the ocean on the outside.
Yes, yeah.
And keep the reactor on the inside.
Yeah. So,
and the colossal squid of we're blinded, we're flying with navigation, kind of stuff of how do we get through here? Okay, let's break out the old charts and get the timer and the stopwatch and compass, and do this old school because all of our tech has been taken out. And, we're so proud of this massive new Cold War warship and all the fancy technology on it, and it's all for naught.
It's all
we have to just to not just have the sailors be helpless in this situation, but really have to show the dedication to the craft in this situation where you are completely fucked.
Yes.
If you don't get it right. And you have no idea what's going on, no ability to explain it, and you're being attacked, but you don't know what or how is doing it, what is doing it or how. The anglerfish, all of a sudden the whole ship just gets knocked off course 15 degrees as it just
mystery encounters.
Almost like an X-Files kind of thing.
Yeah,
we have no real...
Facing.
Yeah, okay, we're getting... even the X-Files would have more information because they're doing... What's up, Don?
Hey, Don! Ew, books! Oh, wait.
Ha! Beat you to it. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
So we need... Okay, so we've got... The colossal squid is obviously going to be last. These are in no particular order yet. I'm just putting them out there so we
could write the stories and just polish them and change whatever.
Yeah.
Because they should almost be independent works. I don't really want the first... Other than the first... I kind of want the first story to be something a little bit more familiar. Like the squid.
Well, okay, so we said that the squid was going to be last, though. So which...
There's no reason we can't reuse it. And, we thought that was the big one.
No. Wait. Okay. So, hang on. We can bookend this. So we open with the giant squid. Hey, it's going pretty good.
Not too bad. Kind of tired.
Yeah.
Work sucked, but hey, that's work.
Post the short stories out of order. So the order is not going to matter. The the order of the center three is not going to matter a whole lot. It's really I'm sorry, brain is doing things. Okay, so giant squid is the first
one.
Yeah, first. So, because originally I think I was thinking that the first encounter was going to happen off screen. It opens on them coming back, but I think it would be better for them to see it and we see them get away, and then the second one they don't get away.
Because it's the Colossus.
Yes, yeah. Should I ask something more fitting? What's Kraken? We are going to use the Kraken. Haven't totally decided yet. So.
I want that to be a late story.
Oh,
thing
yeah.
Of, like, way down in the deep kind of thing.
That should
like
be
Pirates
like
of the Caribbean. It's like up on the surface.
Yeah, that should be like a more modern or a futuristic kind of story if we are going to include the Kraken.
Or even just like the Act 4 kind of thing where it's like all out war. Things are going crazy. Everything's exploding. You're way down there in the deep. You're miles deep in the ocean. Like you don't put your like biggest siege engines on the front line.
Yeah.
You have the forward parties and like that clear the way.
Yeah.
Because if you have this giant thing out there that is an important part of your military force, you're not going to put it out there by itself. Even if it is the Kraken and it's more than capable of defending itself. Mm-hmm. If all of a sudden everybody goes, oh look, there's the Kraken, everybody just turns around and focuses fire at once.
Yeah.
If it's one of those things that are like, the advanced force goes through, everybody's distracted by a bunch of little things, and all of a sudden the Kraken comes out, nobody's looking at the Kraken, or like one or two, are looking at the Kraken, and all of a sudden it's just wrecking house. It's just like
oh shit,
breaking submarines in half, and all sorts of crazy nonsense things. Because again, book thing.
Yeah. Or both. So wait, is this for? Yeah, this is a book thing.
I would not. This would have to be in 5e.
Yeah.
Because I would have to make up the mechanics for it entirely as I roll along.
Yes. Although this could be fun to like, if we get super fucking famous and do this, we could create a module. We could do, one of the stories could be a module for D&D, but we would have to work with.
I feel like this would be better spent as a video game,
Yes. But Don, how are you doing? Clearly, we're both like exhausted and distractible. But sorry, but continue.
Yeah. So like, the first one's the giant squid. They just get away. They have all these stories.
Well, and then I would say like we close the first story on them getting away, and then the fifth story opens on them coming back.
No, the fifth story is the one the ship is lost.
Yes. So what I'm saying is...
And it's not the same.
I know.
Okay.
Right. So what I'm saying is, okay, so they get away with the giant squid, and then in the Colossal Squid story, it opens with the crew from the first story returning home with the story. They're not believed, and Scorpion sent out. So, because I really
or
like...
you could just reference back to it without needing to have the overlap. Because again, short stories...
I really want this opening, though.
Okay.
I like this opening. because then
we
this
can
is
do
where
an abbreviated version of it.
Yeah, abbreviated version, because this is where we were introduced to the sailor character.
He comes back. Yeah. Okay.
Because I think they should both have some sort of appearance in...
Makes it 10 o'clock over there.
Yeah.
That's a late day.
Oof. I'm so sorry. I would be tired too if I was working that late. I have worked that late before. Not fun. Because then that gives it a full circle feel, and
he can just kind of like go off. Like we are introduced to him, he's just mouthing off, and then he's gone because he comes back
in the books. Yeah, and then here we're introduced to the scientist, and so she'll see more. It'll look like we're getting more of a narrative out of her when it's really most of her stories told through memos, and then and it like especially because then with this fifth story, this is going to become that clinching point where like it's like the season finale where they're like, oh, actually all of these episodes are connected to a greater thing.
Yeah.
Begin
book one.
Yes, that's what I'm kind of going for. So. The Bloody Belly Comb Jelly is the one where there's like tiny creatures instead of the big creature, right?
Yeah, there's like the mega jelly.
Tiny jellies in the mega jelly.
And the little jellies are like, will go in and you gum up the system and explode.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
Into the system. dickfish sleeve?
I feel like we should save dickfish for the books.
Okay. Because we're going for existential horror here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is more mystery, craziness. I don't really want a lot of levity in it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is almost horror.
Yes, yeah.
Anglerfish. In a Edgar Allan Poe, Lovecraft sort of.
Yes, yeah. Which teenage me would be thrilled because I'm obsessed with my love for Edgar Allan Poe. I just want to go back to teenage me and be like, baby girl, are you okay? I mean, I know you're not okay because I'm you in 10 years, but also, are you okay?
The Raven was originally the poem I wanted on my back, but I'm not 8 feet tall, so I don't have the space for that.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
I did come up with a neat idea for an art piece about it.
Yeah. With for a tattoo?
Not as a tattoo.
Or,
as just a calligraphy piece with ink drawing.
So
like a raven on a tombstone. The idea of the tattoo was like a raven on a tombstone, and then the tombstone has the raven on it, which is what eventually became the scroll with the Fire and Ice Dragon with Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. Because I do have the space for that. It's just my entire back.
Which is fine.
That sort of fucking Boondock Saints, I will get this tattooed on me sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, did I tell you, have I ever told you about the sleeves that I want?
Just litany of fear wrapped around my arm. Litany against fear wrapped around my arm.
Well...
ending at my knuckles.
Well, kind of with that, I want half sleeves on each arm. Like, one side will be, literature that has impacted me, and then, media that's impacted me. So there's going to be a reason with that. So,
anyways.
Going back to this. Yeah. Ooh, maybe just shorthand that for the most well-known quote from it. Maybe another great... Ooh, for the Raven idea.
Yeah, it's just, it would be harder for me to pick one. Also, I don't have the space to put that on me anymore because I already used my back.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting a tattoo that goes on my stomach because that's real... Back's not going to change that much. Maybe get more muscly if I get to working out again, but, stomach in 30 years...
Very different place.
I ain't gonna have abs.
In 30 years, yeah, probably not.
Not if I'm living life correctly.
Exactly. I mean, you could do arms or even if you wanted a singular quote or something.
My idea for the piece just doesn't. It doesn't
work. Yeah, that's fine.
I would do something simpler like Lenore's Burger, Burger's Lenore. Den die Tod rieten schnell. For the dead ride quickly.
You could totally. Well, because your the bicep is a good.
That would be a good bicep
kind of
place with
tattoo kind of thing.
An Iron Maiden album cover, kind of skeleton on a horse kind of thing.
Yeah.
That'd be a dope tattoo.
That'd be super cool.
With it's on his shield, sort of shield up, rating sort of Iron Maiden skeleton on an Iron Maiden skeleton kind of horse on the shields. Then that top.
That would be really cool.
Which, if you've never read that poem, that's fucking depressing.
On the list, as everything is.
Gotta find a good translation unless you want to read 17th century German.
I don't know 17th century German, so need a good translation.
It's not terribly different from modern German, but
I also don't know modern German, so yes. Yeah, find me a good translation. I'll read it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so the anglerfish, our idea for that was big fucking anglerfish.
Yeah, just giant fuck off anglerfish.
Yeah.
Of what if because it's kind of a classic sea monster trope that's come up a lot in modern media of everything from Finding Nemo to Legend of Zelda.
Of this huge.
Just this already monstrous looking fish. What if it was big enough that it could just swallow you in one gulp? And then we're taking it one step further. What if it was big enough it could bite a submarine in half?
Okay, so anglerfish, do we big enough to bite a submarine in half? Do we want it?
Not that one. That's the super deep one. That's the big mama.
Yeah. So when they in the short stories though, when they encounter the anglerfish, what are we? Because this is the one I've been kind of stumped on.
The hull crushing it around. As it gets bitten into by these the not
so
big
anglerfish does bite them.
Yeah.
bites the hull, it gets crushed. Do they survive?
I want the last story to be the only one where they don't survive.
Okay. They get away, but barely. That actually makes me think of a recent incident.
The Connecticut. That was in the news. We could talk about that.
Okay. I was like, ah!
Don't get me too started on that, because I know a lot of shit that I probably shouldn't.
Okay, but I'll just say this: we could model it after the Connecticut.
Doesn't have to. They don't all have to be modeled around things, because I like
know.
this. I have a picture in my head of just like some poor schmuck standing watch, and all of a sudden, just like the wall just goes.
And he's like, what? They get away, but barely. Like. Yeah.
Taking on water heavily. They are just like running all of the pumps to discharge water overboard. They are just buckets,
they have to,
just like trying to move it so that they can, like, having a hard time maintaining trim because the water's coming in and it's just making the submarine fucking not necessarily rock back and forth like that, but as the water shifts the angle of the boat, and they're just constantly fighting to try and keep control of the boat, keep the attitude of the boat.
Yeah.
Within the cruise control. Like the bloody belly, comb jelly, and the mantis shrimp are more like,
things are getting in the system.
The bloody belly, comb jelly, are more like things are getting in the system. Everything's kind of shutting down slowly. Whereas the mantis shrimp are like catastrophic failures of like fighting the ship internally.
Yeah.
To really kind of like give a sense of how complicated a piece of machinery a submarine is, but how much like a body it is, in that everything is interrelated. You cannot break just one system. It's like causing just one organ to fail. You're going to have effects throughout the rest of the body. Of like
catastrophic failures. So, something that you said made me think of this for going back to the anglerfish one. You said something earlier about like, oh, what if they're down there and like, well, we need to surface, but we can't surface because we're somewhere we shouldn't.
Yeah. Which is kind of the entire point of a submarine.
Right. But what if that happens with the anglerfish? Like, they have to emergency port any foreign port that they're not supposed to be at. Like, maybe it's an ally, but they're not supposed to be in those waters.
What does that imply?
Maybe a lack of trust of allies.
Creating like political tensions.
Yeah. So if you're patrolling an ally's waters, maybe it's because you don't trust them. Is that a reasonable leap?
Yeah. We could workshop that a little bit, but I like the basis of the idea.
Creates political tension.
This way, it's not just. I'm like, that's like the last page of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, it's just kind of. These ships getting back to port, we just get like a tiny taste of the after consequences of these submarines coming back heavily damaged by something other than human weapon fire.
Yeah.
Of like, the first one is just kind of like, they make it back to an American port, everything gets hush-hush. A whole lot of people will just get like, yeah, don't worry about it, your contract, you're good.
Yeah.
So long and thanks for all the fish. And then like, more and more of it of like, all of a sudden, contractors have to be brought in to like fix these things, and like the secret gets harder to keep. And like, okay, now we have political tensions, and then finally we lost a fucking boat.
Yeah.
To the point where we need a dedicated organization with funding to
deal with whatever
this.
The fuck is going on here. Yeah.
And then, the DUA just kind of pops up and goes, hey, we deal with this kind of thing. And
hey, this is our job.
Largely, they go from like, a back office in a random government building somewhere to like a prominent subset organization within the Department of the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So the
the secret NAVC-09.
Yes.
NAVC 0X.
I like that.
This way you can't fat finger the keyboard and accidentally reach their website.
Yes. Makes it really hard to for them to be found.
They're there. You can find them if you already know where they are.
Exactly.
I love Tortuga sort of thing.
Yeah, like where
Going
you
back
have
to the Pirates of the Caribbean law.
Because of course we have to. Because we're pirates. I want to watch that movie again. That was one of my favorite movies.
The first one was amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And then the rest of them proved that they had no idea what made the first one good, and they kept trying to make lightning happen again.
Yeah. Although I really did love the story arc with Cutler Beckett, and I think with the third movie, he kept making the deals with Jack, and Jack kept betraying him. Like the whole thing that they did there, where he was like constantly trying to like hold on to his grip of like the sea, and he kept losing his grip, and the scene where he dies and he's just like, he knows like it's all over, and he's like walking across
calmly
the boat
through the
as everything is, and then he's just done, and everyone's like, what do we do, and there's nothing we can do, and his just acceptance of his fate, and he realizes that he just fucked up so hard he can't go back anymore. That
was a fantastic scene.
Yeah, I absolutely love. Like, he's one of my favorite villains, in that kind of Disney.
Because he's not a Saturday morning cartoon villain.
Exactly.
Even though he's portrayed that way a lot.
He's nuanced and complex.
Yes.
And I was low key obsessed with him.
He's just a man obsessed with power.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was low key obsessed with him as a teenager. Like, probably to an unhealthy point, but like, he was so cool. Let's see. So they don't see, with the Bloody Belly comb jelly, they don't see the super carrier part, but they just see the results of it, like getting into
the system.
Like
and
I said,
everything I don't really want to do like the crazy underwater space combat stuff with the short stories. I just kind of want to keep it to the existential dread. Yeah. Almost to the point where they don't know there are creatures.
Yeah.
They don't know what the creatures are. They can't identify. They know there's something there.
Yes.
They know there's something aggressive there.
Yes.
And it's attacking them.
Yes.
And it's more about them surviving the situation than fending off the enemy.
Yeah, than figuring out exactly what it is, because they just need to get home.
Because keeping the mystery alive is a large part of what I feel like we're going for with the short stories.
Yes.
And then we can get into the absolute madness in the books.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not. Oh, so you like it a second? So I was thinking because
Bloody Belly Bone Jelly, then Mantis Shrimp, then Anglerfish,
and then the Colossal Squid.
And then the Colossal Squid. Yeah. The squids have to bookend, and the Bloody Belly Comb Jelly, because it's less instantaneously destructive and more just like shutting things down.
Yeah.
And then the Mantis Shrimp is more aggressively catastrophic.
Yeah.
Then the Anglerfish is not just per system, it's going straight for the hull.
And they almost die.
Yeah. When there's flooding on a submarine, you talk about flooding on a submarine, you're talking about the seawater systems.
Yeah.
Because if any of the seawater systems get compromised, you can fight that casualty. If the hull gets compromised, everyone's dead.
Yeah, everyone is.
There is no going back on that.
Yeah.
You will not keep the tide out.
Yeah. So, and that makes it even more, the stakes are even higher, because these people literally could have died, and they only did not because they were where they shouldn't have been.
Yes.
Which then creates that, that political
tensions of, we really need to do something about this, and then finally lose the boat, and, we have to do something about this now.
And then, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even workshopping the squid bookend. So part of the reason why I like this one opening on them returning is because I really love the visual of the story, with the first story ending with them getting away and saying, we have to go home, they're not going to believe this when we tell them.
Yeah.
And then coming full circle and them saying, you guys, there's something in the water. And then time passes, and then people are sent, because obviously time, all of these things happen, and then the Scorpion is sent out to that previous area of patrol, and they're and maybe even our sailor character again, if he was discharged in exchange for his silence, but maybe someone references the previous story, the first story. It says, well, didn't those guys come the last time we sent someone out to those waters? Those guys came back with this wild story, Are we sure we want to, do this? And they're like, no, we don't. Like, it's fine. They were crazy. There's a reason none of them are in the Navy anymore, kind of thing. And then the Scorpion goes down. And I think it could be, and maybe this one needs to be workshopped too, but in the first book, our introduction of the sailor character, like, coming back, is he's, like, scrolling through social media or something, and he hears about the Scorpion going down.
Not in the 70s, he's not.
Oh, duh. This is the 70s. I'm sorry. My brain just...
Reads it in the paper.
Yeah, reads it in the paper.
Or gets a phone call from another buddy.
Yeah, who says...
still has more contacts in there.
Yeah, and he says...
Wasn't on the same boat as him.
Yeah, but knows... Maybe he's still in.
Something like that.
And he knows that the Scorpion went to the same area that they did, that he and his friend did, and he calls him and he says, "Hey, I wanna tell you this before you see it on the news or something." The Scorpion.
You won't see this on the news.
Yeah, you won't see this on the news. The Scorpion went down, but I think you should know because they went to the same place that you guys went to.
You're gonna hear the official version.
Yeah.
This is what actually happened.
Yeah.
And, like, not even have the first book be part of the, like, him coming back, just kind of introduce him as the character already back, returned to civilian life and, like, struggling with things. And then, because the short story already tells it, we don't really need to tell it again.
Right.
Because we're already writing the short stories as a companion piece to the books. We don't really need to, like, we can definitely flash back to, like, moments, but not, like, entire scenes or chapters.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, we're gonna take this away. So book 1 opens on one of the sailors from... We gotta name the first ship. Sorry.
Just call it Boat 1 for now.
Boat 1. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Opens on one of the sailors from Boat 1. He's been discharged in exchange for his silence. He's struggling to return to civilian life. We could have, like, establishing shots, scenes where we see him at work or, like, at home. Maybe, like, he's got a girlfriend or a wife or something, and she's trying to, like, move on and start a real life with him, and he's struggling to cope with that.
Yeah.
Where we see him struggling to move on and establish a life with his partner.
Or even that he doesn't have anyone. He's completely alone because he's consumed with this.
Yeah. Or he loses his partner because he can't move on. At work, he's not integrated into the work, the company culture.
Everybody's talking about their bullshit, their stupid little things.
Yeah, everyone talks about their stupid little things, and he can't take any of it seriously. Their problems seem so stupid and small compared to what he's seen and experienced. Drinks a little too much, spends evenings and weekends isolated.
Can we just, like, save half a page and say, has PTSD?
Yeah, has PTSD. Absolutely. I think that's, like, a lot of these are evidences of PTSD, but I think clearly stating that, and even flashbacks or dreams that
Flashback in the middle of a sushi restaurant. Somebody pours the soy sauce on the octopus arm and it starts curling because of the electrolytic reaction.
And he just
Freaks the fuck out.
Well, that could even, so if he doesn't have like a significant other, or maybe he comes home and like his partner has already left him, maybe for someone else, and so he's trying to get back out there and go on dates, and he has a flashback. I know the sushi restaurant was a tongue-in-cheek reference, but it did make me think, like, what if somebody does to him what I did to you that one time on accident because I'm a shitty friend?
Yeah, that was not fun.
I'm sorry.
He aggressively eats calamari. Just weird character trope. Aggressively eats calamari because he's gonna fucking get back at these things.
But does he know it's a squid though? That's the thing.
I mean, you could like see. Doesn't know until they get back and then look out and see all the sucker marks on
and
the
they're
wall.
like, oh yeah, that's true. Okay, so aggressively
They're going to see the battle damage to the outside of the submarine once they get back to port.
He aggressively eats calamari on a date. She never calls him back.
Not even on a date.
Yeah.
That's just his fucking thing.
Aggressively eats calamari.
Like, he eats it all the time and he's super aggressive about it.
as a weird
revenge, like, I'm gonna get you before you get me, just like strange little twist of his brain after this experience. Because I feel like it's a realistic and strange enough to be funny, but realistic enough to be like, I could see somebody's brain breaking like that.
Oh, absolutely. I just think it would be really funny for it to happen on a date. On a date where he's trying to get back out there, and then he sees that they have calamari in the menu, and he's like, "We are ordering this." And she wants
I am going to get them first.
She wants something else for an appetizer, and he's like, "No, we're getting calamari." And he just shoves it all in his mouth.
With the tentacle one just hanging out.
And she's like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Check,
and it just
please.
never comes back. So weird character trope. He aggressively eats calamari all the time.
I feel like that'd be a fun little light thing to throw in there.
Yeah, well, and I think because obviously the short stories are very dark and deep and all of that, but then we're going to need some levity in this in this series
to bring the action
make
up and down.
Yeah, even the darkest kinds of stories have certain levels of humor in them. Even going back to Monday's live where we were talking about Django Unchained, where there's these campy things happening alongside these really dark things.
Tarantino's love of grindhouse kind of nonsense violence.
Yeah.
Next to the juxtaposed next to the deep dark history.
Point that he's making. Yeah. So it makes me think of the sacks with the holes and you're about to fucking lynch some people and you're complaining about the eye holes in your sacks.
Yeah.
Okay. I like this. So okay, and then one day a buddy that's still in calls him. Calls him.
Sean Connery's just buddy.
Yeah. I was just about to make the same reference. Calls him and...
just try their best. Winners go home to fuck the prom queen. Vanessa was the prom queen. Oh!
Yeah.
I should watch The Rock again.
I have never seen it.
To the list!
It's right there.
I'll do it tomorrow.
You'll write in my journal tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's not a journal, it's just a notebook. It is a journal, but it's not for journaling.
That would just make it a notebook.
Yeah, but it's
Is it a journal if you don't use it as a journal? Other than
is
that,
it a journal?
it's just paper.
Well, yeah, but if you don't use it as Dear Diary kind of journal, I just keep track of stuff in here.
Other than that, it's a notepad. It's not a journal, it's a journal.
Okay, well...
If you have the ship of Theseus, and eventually you repair the boards from the sea-mighty voyage till the point where you've replaced all the boards, is it still the ship of Theseus? Yes, because what makes it the ship of Theseus is the crew of Theseus. not the fucking wood. It's a stupid philosophical question. It misses the goddamn point.
WandaVision writers, take note.
No. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
Just stop with the philosophy.
keep letting Elizabeth Olsen just fulfill all of my fantasies for watching TV as a kid.
Yes. Speaking of the Ship of Theseus, have you heard of this? Okay, if I say this, I'm going to get us on a tangent, so I should probably finish this
Say
first. Okay, so there's this book called S, that J.J. Abrams wrote with, I can't remember, S. Okay, he wrote it with Doug Dorst. And it's based on the Ship of Theseus. Like, literally is the Ship of Theseus, but with all of these other, like, notes with it. Let me find the Goodreads for it. So, one book, two readers, world of mystery, medicine, desire. A young woman picks up a book left behind by a stranger. Inside it are his margin notes, which reveal a reader entranced by the story and by its mysterious author. She responds with notes of her own, leaving the book for the stranger, and so begins an unlikely conversation that plunges them both into the unknown. So the book is Ship of Theseus, and then the writer is Straka, which of course he wrote Ship of Theseus, and then the readers are Jennifer and Eric, who are like basically trading the book and leaving notes and putting things in the, like, I have a copy of it downstairs. They put things in between the pages, and like it's so fucking cool.
So it's like The Notebook, but not stupid.
Yes. Which I haven't read The Notebook, so
I figured you would have at least seen it. Whatever.
No. I happen to love. Was it you being a good boyfriend?
Yes.
Then you were a good boyfriend. Because
it wasn't worth getting laid.
I'm sorry. Well, see, I happen to love, like, I really, like, I love the sappy romance movies, not all the time, but just, like, for a little piece of candy for my brain. And I happen to be married to someone who does not love those things. So.
Because they never portray realistic relationships.
Well, no, but they're
how things get worked through. I find works that do that to be far more romantic. Of, like, yes.
Fair.
It's not all the grand gestures, it's the little things and getting over things and getting through things together, not this, like, I'm going to fight through time and space
to find you
without actually, fighting. Like,
so, sorry.
Whatever, anyways.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Like, those are, like, the more romantic stories, but for me, it's, like, literally just, like, I want cute and I want a piece of candy.
Yes.
I want some cake. I'm going to go back to the robust, healthy food after I eat this piece of cake, but I'm going to eat the piece of cake. And also... I
mean, I have my own pieces of cake.
Yeah.
Like,
yours just aren't sappy romance movies.
No.
So, I really like romantic comedies. Those are my favorites. So, you should read House of Leaves. I have House of Leaves. I don't know who you're talking to, but I have House of Leaves. I haven't read it yet, but I started it. Which actually, bringing up S reminds me that my book club is we're spending the whole year reading it, and we're supposed to be through chapter 1 by our meeting on Saturday, and I haven't started it. So, that's okay. I finished our main book.
You're doing one book over the course of a year with your book club, but I have to read a book a week.
No, but we're also doing a book a month.
Okay.
So, I also have to read a book a week. I have to read multiple books a week.
You have far more time to read than I do.
Yes, that is true. Anyway. Do you want to change that?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay. No, House of Leaves is not my book club book. Fiona and Jane is my book club book.
You did not say that.
No. Okay, so
you started talking about House of Leaves and then said, yeah, we're reading it over the course of a year.
Oh, I meant we're reading S over the course of a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Have you read House of Leaves, Reed? If the answer is yes, I'm going to be shocked. Sincerely. Yeah. Okay, that tracks. That tracks.
A for effort.
Yeah, A for effort, but not the reader in the relationship. So that's why I was surprised that he was like, you read House of Leaves. Yes, yeah. So, okay, so let's get to, it is really good, I've heard. So anybody that's still in calls him and tells him
the true story
of the Scorpion. So I think we're at a good stopping point here. I think next time we definitely need to dive into the mantis shrimp.
Yes.
And then, honestly, I think we can start writing.
Yeah.
I think we're at that point where we can start at least on the
definitely
short
with
stories.
The short stories.
Yeah.
We should do the short stories before we even attempt the books.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I fully agree. Yeah, short stories come first, then everything else. It's going to be... I think it's going to be fantastic. I think we've made a lot of good progress today, too. So,
yes, definitely.
On Saturday, we're doing the Scarlet Letter.
Yep.
That's going to be super fun, unless you need more time. Like, I'm not doing that.
I have tomorrow off.
Okay, cool.
I should be able to finish it.
Cool. Because I'm going to have to... I'm going to have to find pockets of time to finish it, though, because I had to finish Fiona and Jane this week. So, anyway, let's find someone to raid, and then we will head out. So, let's see who's on. Oh, okay. We have someone playing D&D. Don, if you're still here, if you have a recommendation, I'll totally take one. I doubt he's still here, though. It's late for him. There we go.
I love me some Conker's Bad Fur Day.
So, I've never seen this. I've never heard of this. Do we want to raid Casper, then? Yeah?
Mature content warning.
Okay, yeah, well, this channel is also mature content. Like, you have to,
okay.
agree that you're going to watch mature content before you even watch our streams.
God,
Because we
he's
say
fighting
fuck.
the great and mighty Pooh.
So, yeah, let's read Casper. So, she is playing Conker's Bad Fur Day, so we're going to start this raid. I have never even heard of this game.
So, back in the console war days in the N64, it's a rare game.
Right.
So they had also they were working on it at the same time they were doing Banjo-Kazooie.
Okay.
And they realized how many other mascot platformers were going out there. Conker was originally introduced as this nice cute little squirrel in Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
And they were making a game called Conker's Quest, which went through a couple of title changes. It was going to be this nice, fun, almost like Bambi thing. And then they looked and saw every other mascot platformer that was getting released at the same time and went, we need to make this unique. So they made it as graphic and mature as possible. So this cute little woodland squirrel became this drunken, swearing, sex-crazed fucking maniac that's just hungover all the time.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious.
Bodily fluid humor everywhere. There's literally a boss that is just a singing pile of shit. And you beat it by throwing rolls of toilet paper at it. And when I say singing,
incredible.
I mean it sings opera. I am the great mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you.
We are reading in 5, 4... So, we will see you next time. See you on Saturday for the Scarlet Letter. Bye!